this pandemic. Breaking connections to the world. Empowering language on humanity. Let's bring the world of learning in one channel. Welcome to Business Combinations English TV!
Hello, magandang buhay to Sebastians and to other dear students. This is Mamay, your grade 10 English teacher in DCBES MNHS. Don't forget to subscribe in our educational channel, DCBES MNHS English TV. We are now in week 4 in the last quarter in your Pivot 4A Learner's Pocket. In this lesson class, you are going to learn how to write a good expanded definition of words. And our most essential learning competency is to give expanded definition of words. Now, in our previous lesson, we have been discussing on how to define terms, particularly technical terms used in research. In this lesson, you will discover that expanded definition of words goes deeper than a simple dictionary definition. Yes, it is offering an expanded analysis and illustration of a concept that might be abstract, debatable, controversial, unfamiliar, or frequently misunderstood. Expanded definitions of words is commonly used in formal papers like research work or academic essays to ensure that there will be no misunderstanding in the context. So, what other language benefits can you get from an expanded definition? Here they are. First, distinguishing the characteristic of a certain word. Second, providing extra facts or information about the word. Third, by giving examples. And lastly, by saying what cannot be included to describe the word. Now, there are two ways to distinguish an expanded definition. It could be through formal definition or informal definition. The formal definition consists of three parts. These are the term being defined, the class it belongs to, and its distinguishing characteristics. While informal definition, on the other hand, explains an unfamiliar term using synonyms or antonyms introduced by the words or, in other words, or like. Now, let's take note on how the phrase sense of humor was defined. In a formal definition, sense of humor is the ability to laugh and make others laugh. Here, the words in boldface, sense of humor, is the term. The underlined, the ability, is the class into which the word belongs. And the italicized and underlined words to laugh and make others laugh is the distinguishing characteristics that separate the term from the other description of the same class. An informal definition explains an unfamiliar term by using synonyms or antonyms, as I have mentioned a while ago. Just like this one. Sense of humor means to appreciate a joke or to perceive humor. A joke or to perceive humor would be the synonyms for the term sense of humor. Since expanding basic formal definition means explaining the differentiating characteristics thoroughly, here are the techniques or approaches on how you can make expanded definitions. In all the techniques that we are going to discuss, we will only use one word as an example, and that word is arbitration. Let's start with the first technique. It is etymology. Etymology is giving or sharing a word's origin. For example, arbitration came from the Latin word arbitrary, meaning to judge. Another is historical references or background. How to do it? By discussing the history of the term, its use, controversies associated with it. For example, you are going to discuss how the use of arbitration as third-party mediation, which dates back from the 1630s, and how the practice came about. Another approach is by cause and effect. How to do it? By discussing how the situation came about and what effects it may have. For example, in the case of arbitration, cause and effect may be the same as the history. Another technique would be through description. By listing and defining the component parts, identifying smaller, more familiar pieces of an idea to the definition of the bigger concept, using a word that creates a picture in the reader's mind so that the reader might relate through memory of sound, sight, touch, hearing, or smell. And here's the example. Arbitration is conducted by a trained arbiter who sets down the rules that the parties must abide by. Now let's proceed to the next technique. Principles of operation. How to do it? By discussing how the topic in question functions, including any special materials or conditions required. For example, send the other party notice of your intent to pursue arbitration. The claimant or the person initiating the case sends the respondent of a demand letter. This letter states the desire to submit the dispute to arbitration either by means of the contract's arbitration clause or by mutual consent. Then we have classification. We can use this by showing how the topic fits into a larger category. For example, arbitration is one of the alternatives to going into a formal court to settle disputes. Then we have contrast or negation. We can do this by defining a term and explaining what the concept is not, showing how the topic differs from the others in the same class. Let's have an example. In an arbitration proceeding, no lawyers are present. Now here, the presence of the negative words no or not, also never, makes it a negation or in contrast. Then we have another technique, through comparison. This is by showing how the topic is similar to others in class. Example, as with lawsuits or other court proceedings, the decision in an arbitration proceeding is legally binding on the parties. Then we have another approach. This is called analogy. How to do it? By explaining and comparing two dissimilar topics. By dissimilar, of course, unlike, wherein the second is familiar to the audience. For example, an arbiter is like a referee. He or she listens to both sides and makes a decision as to who is at fault without the intervention of outside parties. Then we have through the use of examples or anecdotes. This is by telling a story or example that illustrates the term. Arbitration was recently used to settle the dispute between the labor union and management. And last technique we have through the use of illustrations. This is very simple because you are just going to provide a picture or image that is used to clarify the definition of a text, just like what you see here. Now, for our learning activities, in Learning Task 1, you are going to match the term or word in column A to its possible expanded definition in column B. You are just going to write the letter of the correct answer on the blank. Let's try number 1. Alzheimer's disease. What do you think is the expanded definition of this term? The answer is letter B. Alzheimer's disease refers to affected individuals who are at first being forgetful. As the memory disorder gradually worsens, the individuals, although able to recall occurrences in the distant past, are unable to remember recent events. In Learning Task 2, from the pool of words below, Determine the techniques or approaches used in the numbered statements found in the expanded definition of the word freedom. Here, let us try to answer number 2. The word freedom is defined as power of self-determination, and it came from Old English. The technique used here is etymology. Then we have the assessment part. This is very simple, for you're just going to decide whether each statement is true or false. There are 5 statements in this part. And that's all for today. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. God bless. And we'll see you again in our next learning episode in English 10.